And hello, everyone. So, I decided, you know what? Let's start a podcast. So, this podcast is going to be called Ongoing Titles. Mostly because I don't have a title yet. This is episode 1, so let's start off with some introductions. I'm Noah. I'm a 19-year-old vegan from California. Don't worry, this isn't going to be a vegan-focused podcast. Though, I might bring those topics up later on. Kind of just depends on if it leans to that. I love running, I love working out, I play D&D, currently enrolled in college, and yeah, that's the basics of who I am. And for this first podcast, let's just start off with some random topic. This week, I recently finished an audiobook, The Hobbit. For someone who's been playing D&D for, I want to say, 5 years now, I've actually never listened to The Hobbit or Lord of the Rings. And finally I decided, you know what? I'm going to do it. So I got an Audible subscription, got the book, since I don't like sitting down and reading. I prefer just to listen to it on my commutes. And since I have an hour drive to class, hour drive back, that's 2 hours right there I can get in. 3 times a week, 6 hours. Why not? So I did that, I completed the book, and honestly, not what I was expecting from its reputation. It's a great book. I love the book. But it felt so much more, so much less serious than I was expecting. With how much hype Lord of the Rings always got, and just how big of a base it has, I've always assumed it was going to be similar to something like Game of Thrones or Skyrim. I say that as if I watched Game of Thrones, or if I have played Skyrim. I played Skyrim way too much. Not recently, but I used to be obsessed. Not the point, though. Either way, I didn't expect it to be so fun. I thought it was going to be, here's adventure, here's tension, here's drama, not Bilbo and friends go on an adventure. They go into a cave. Some goblins there. They escape cave. Oh, look, there's some elves. And just like playful stuff like that. Well, still not keeping it childish either. It never dumbed anything down or acted like the reader was stupid. It introduced things when needed, but otherwise, oh, there's a goblin. Doesn't need to explain what that is. It can. It very much could. But it doesn't need to. You can just assume. It explains Gollum and like what that creature looks like. But it doesn't kid it down and make it less terrifying sounding. And I say sounding. In the movies, honestly, he doesn't look that scary, in my opinion. Like, if I saw that fucker in real life, I might jump for a second, but I would not be that scared. In the book, however, hearing the description of this, like, beady black-eyed creature with, like, very frail ligaments, sharp claws, and even sharper teeth, kind of scheming and talking to himself. That was a bit spooky. That was a bit like, okay, you know what? If I haven't seen all the memes and shit about Lord of the Rings over the years, I probably would have assumed that was like a Lovecraftian creature. But yeah, I don't know. I loved that. I loved that description, how it doesn't dumb things down or make it too overly complex. It stays right in the middle of being like, it takes itself seriously enough where you can have a full story, but not so serious that you are basically just reading a book that's just another drama. I loved that so much. Moving on from that, let's actually have a list of topics. If you're watching this on YouTube, you'll probably see me pull out my phone here and there. That's just so I can quickly glance down and see, oh yeah, that's another thing to talk about. Another one actually would be transitioning from The Hobbit into just RPGs. I mentioned earlier that I play D&D. I used to be obsessed with Skyrim. And honestly, I don't know. I've always found fantasy interesting. I was never that kid who grew up with Harry Potter. I wasn't someone who fantasized of elves and dwarves and all that. That wasn't my thing. Then I remember one day, my friend was over. We were just watching YouTube, and I found a random video. It was how to play D&D. I don't remember exactly who made the video. I think it was like, don't stop learning or don't stop getting smarter. Either way, I was like, you know what? I'll watch it. I'll give it a try. And although the video itself wasn't that interesting, all things considered, it got me interested. So I kept watching more of his videos on it. And then after quite a few videos, I wanted to play it myself. And well, no one I knew played D&D. So I had to make the group myself. I learned all the rules, and from there, I started. Again, if you're watching on YouTube, you should see a bookshelf right back there filled with a ton of books. There's about 7 missing from the top just because I was helping a player out with making characters, and I like to do that in a different area than where I keep my books. Strange thing, but it works out more better for me. Either way, I got obsessed. I ran my first session like a week or two later, I think. And it was just some home game. I didn't even have the rule book yet. I had to look up every little thing and try to help my I ran it with my family, so help my family build characters. Well, I don't even know how to build characters. It was a mess, but it was fun. I got to learn what it was like describing all these little environments, these little nooks and crannies. Building an environment where, hey, there's goblins attacking you. There's a lit blazer in the middle, or fire pit thing. Either way, not the point. There's like that in the middle, lighting the room so you can see, and having a player then rush up, grab a goblin, and throw them into the fire. And I loved that. I never got that from something like Skyrim. And it just hooked me. From there, I started learning more. My first campaign I tried to run was some homebrew campaign. I called it the Argent Lands. It was meant to span across multiple continents. I don't even have the monster manual. I think I had Valor's Guide and maybe the Player's Handbook. I made a dumb choice when I first got into D&D. I decided, instead of getting the monster manual and all the core rules first, I got the expanded stuff first. Imagine buying a game and only getting the DLC and never touching the main content. That's what I originally tried to do with D&D. Against all advice, I thought, alright, the Player's Handbook, I can just Google search a lot of that. And also, once I read it once, I'm not going to need it again. Same thing for the monster manual. I was like, yeah, those are the common monsters. Now, being a brand new player to this, I'm too good to run common monsters. No, I gotta go with something different. And then the Dungeon Master's Guide, I actually did get that one pretty early. That one I did get, like, right when I should. But that was more just because I don't even know. I think it was because I was expecting to DM and not be a player. So I didn't get the Player's Handbook first, which makes sense in the name, but in actuality, you need the Player's Handbook first. You really can't play D&D without that, even if you are the DM. But yeah, I got into D&D, ran the Argent Land campaign. It went for a few months. They got to like level 9 or something before it fizzled out. And then I was like, you know what? I still want to play. So since I was in high school at the time, I decided, you know what? I am starting a D&D club. Why? Just seemed fun. Just seemed interesting. Something to do. I got to start my own club, which is just a cool thing to do when you're in high school. And I got to form groups and play more D&D, which I just got into and I started to love. So I made a club, ran that for a few years, went well. I'm not going to get into too much detail of it. Honestly, it's probably not the most interesting thing. It's just getting people together every week. And I didn't run too many campaigns. I actually got to play for once. except for when a DM was missing, then I have to do like a one-shot last second, but yeah. I ended up starting that, and I started doing a few home games, and that led me to the bane of my existence when it comes to D&D. The module Tomb of Annihilation. Now, don't get me wrong, I love this module. I love the idea of running a game set in Chult, which is a little peninsula in the Forgotten Realms. I love the idea of having the players discover this unknown land. I love the idea of it being undead in this Indiana Jones adventure with a horde dungeon at the end and all these little mysteries, but also this jungle atmosphere. I love it. I have yet to have a game last one session after leaving the main port, Naranzaru. Now, I will admit, a lot of it was because of my DMing and how I try to run it, and also because I keep on trying to run that campaign, even though I never have a group good for it. I have completed campaigns. I've completed Waterdeep Dragon Heist. I didn't complete Icewind Dale, but that fizzled out for outside factors. It was a really strong group for that. Like, they meshed super well. I'm currently getting together a group for Tyranny of Dragons, modifying the hell out of it so it feels less linear to them, and just to make it more fun, but still, I'm going to be running that campaign soon, and I'm pretty confident at completing it. But Tomb of Annihilation, the thing is as a DM, you have to prep a lot, because there's going to be a lot of overland travel. And I know the common advice is just to kind of skip over that, just hand wave it, maybe have one or two encounters. But I like that idea of like the survivalist campaign, where you're venturing into this unknown, making discoveries and fighting to stay alive. And I love doing that. I built systems where you can forge unless you have Goodberry, but if you have Goodberry, it's a limited resource now because the spell component is consumable, and you have to now forge for the component, and just generally making that a lot more fun and just in depth. And my one problem is there's one thing I need that I just haven't had a group do well. And it's nothing against the players. It's legit just a difference in play style here. I want that overland travel to also have personal intrigue. I want the players, maybe when I describe them settling down for the night, them to just be like, "Hey, how's it going? Eisen, what did you think about that alligator today? It almost bit off your leg." Yeah, that was a close one. That's what I try to gear the in-between bits for. But every single time, I end up getting a group where that's not the part of the campaign they love. They don't care for those like settling down for the night conversations or the interplay between characters. For them, they would just like hand waving the night. Alright, we rest for the day, we set out in the morning, we go that direction. Okay, any random events? No, nope. Okay, next day. They don't want to roleplay a little bit of what happened during that day. Now, my groups love roleplay, they just want it to be more DM focused, if that makes sense. Like, they love roleplaying with NPCs. They just don't like doing it with each other unless prompted to. I've seen them do it with like a shopkeep, but I haven't seen them ever do it without me basically having an NPC talk to one, then talk to another, and then be like, "Hey, there's a difference here," and then having them then the players resolve it. And like I said, that's a playstyle difference, and that's why Waterdeep Dragon Heist worked out so well. That's why I think Icewind Dale started working out so well, is because the player secrets in that forces more of that interplay. But I don't know, just I haven't yet to find a group that really loves that interplay, so I can play that up. But yeah, that's campaign is the bane of my existence. Tomb of Annihilation. Love the campaign. I have yet to have a group last more than one session outside put him on through before it fizzles out and we end up switching campaigns to something that fits the group better. Which, right, if you're running D&D, that is not a bad thing. If you can tell very early on in the campaign that the group is not going to enjoy the campaign, cut your losses, scrap that campaign, and move on to a different one. Or, if possible, rework it. Whatever works best for your group. It is not bad to end a campaign early if you don't think the players are going to enjoy it after a few sessions. Moving on from that, my next campaigns were just a smattering of different little books. I ran through most of Princes of the Apocalypse out back in my high school days. That ended because the semester ended and we all had to do our own separate things. Though they did get pretty far. They got right before the boring stuff with all the dungeon delving, since the dungeon delving just repeats over and over again. But that campaign, pretty good. That campaign's a lot better if you have one or two groups. You either A, have to have a group that loves, and I mean loves, role-playing with themselves. Because that campaign has a lot of a downtime where you can do that. When you're traveling from, like, Yatar down to one of the other cities, I forgot the names, it's been a few years. You might have a bit of player roleplay. When they meet a new player, a new NPC, and the NPC does a little hand sign, and we're all just talking. If you notice, if you're watching on YouTube, you see I do a lot of hand motions. And, like, if the players are really into roleplay and they notice that hand sign, they might realize, oh, that wasn't just him talking with his hands. That was actually a secret signal that he's part of this cult. So if you have a group that's very much into that roleplay and not so much of hitting things or the actual story itself, they want to just more have those, like, personal, like, little interconnected personal roleplay things, it works out great. The other type of group I would recommend it for is one where you're more playing D&D as an excuse to hang out. And by that, I mean, maybe while DMing, you do the optional rule in the DMG, where at a random point, a player can say, you know what, I'm DMing now, and you guys switch positions. That could so boost that campaign. But again, that's not because you're focusing on the story, that's more because you're like hanging out and you're having fun. You're taking this pretty simple of, oh, evil cultists, go stop them, and bring it into a more of a character growth on your end, or just hang out with friends and just partying. It's a good campaign if you're playing it less because of the campaign itself. And then after that campaign, let's see. I believe after that one, I went to Waterdeep Dragon Heist. I've ran that multiple times. I'm actually about to run it again soon, because it's just a great short campaign. It's levels 1 through 5. It's basically, I can't say too much without spoiling it. I don't know if anyone's watching is ever going to play. Hell, this podcast is more just meant to be me rambling about random topics. But essentially, it starts off with a tavern brawl. Honestly, not the strongest start in my opinion, but if a group is brand new to D&D, they will eat that shit up, because when a group is new, they want the stereotype stuff. When they're not new, that's when you want to change it up a bit. Either way, not the point. It starts off with a tavern brawl, then moves on to a short investigation to find a NPC. Not going to say if you do or don't. He might be dead at the end, might not. You don't know yet. And after all that, you end up somehow, again, trying to keep it more or less vague about, like, what happens to cause these things, because I don't want to spoil it. Somehow, you end up with a tavern. And somehow you end up on a quest to find this vault of dragons that has a ton of gold. And your reasoning isn't just because of the gold. It can be for your specific character. But your reasoning for wanting to do it is, I want to get to this gold and get it away from, and get out of this area before this other person gets to it and does something much worse. And that other person varies from campaign to campaign because there's 4 different villains for the 4 different seasons. So it has a lot of replayability there. Not to mention the town of Waterdeep itself has a lot of replayability because one time you might have the campaign focused on the more upper class pompous types. You might have another campaign where you are more in the ghettos, another one more dealing with the trade of the city, another one dealing with like some of the just common culture like Three Dagger Alley, and just having a little storyline going along with that. And this city is ripe for mystery, adventure, and just a ton of different things. It's a really living city, and even if you run this same villain in the same season, you can have a completely different like through line up until the very end, which I just love. And then if you run it again, if you just change the season, that changes everything. Let's say you were doing nobility. Okay, maybe the first time around it was summer and everyone was like having some type of like midnight outdoor midnight feast, and your characters got invited to it to watch the summer stars, hear tales of old, and celebrate. I'm not sure when all the holidays are, but celebrate something like the Day of Wonder, let's say. Okay, which is where a ton of robots march through town. And to watch that and like have the fireworks go off and just a beautiful summer night. Then take that exact same scene, an exact same idea of noble, having them play in noble areas, and switch the season to winter. And now maybe it's a grand ball. Maybe it's something different. It doesn't have to be this outdoor night stargaze, but maybe it's you are at a grand ball. The fire is blazing out in the corner as bards play delighted songs. Some from a tabaxi from Cholt playing on a flute, while another from Neverwinter strumming on his dulcimer, creating an elaborate clash of music that sounds almost jazzy. We just complete different scene, and that to me doesn't feel right to have during summer, but it does during winter. And that season just completely changed the feel. Alright, and both of them, the players might still investigate the same thing. Oh no, this noble's a necromancer. I don't know. That might be a storyline, might not. But the setup and the follow through is just different. But the ultimate goal is still the same. I just love that about that campaign. So I ran through that. I have done a little bit of, what is it called? It's Tales of the Yawning Portal. That's it. I have ran a few of those dungeons intermittently in my other campaigns, just because they are useful, they are nice, they're just kind of a little add-on to everything. And yeah, those campaigns are fun to throw in. If you're having an overland march, maybe throw in a little dungeon from there. Or if your party is investigating a library, throw in a little bit of Candlekeep Mysteries. Oh, you want to have a Halloween-themed one? The Mists arrive and they're taken to Ravenloft, and you have a one-shot in there. Like, I love doing that as well. I mean, yeah. I don't know what else to really say about D&D and my love for it. It's something that's been so big in my life, but also in the background at the same time. I've been the D&D guy for a while, but also I've been the runner. As of recent, I've been the German guy because I learned a bit of German. Again, if you're watching this on YouTube, the jacket I'm wearing actually came from Germany, not when I was visiting, I have yet to visit, but when I did a gift exchange with someone from Germany. And I learned a bit of German. Ich spreche Deutsch, nicht sehr gut, aber ich kann sprechen es. If you speak German, you just heard me say I can speak German, but not very good. But I can speak it. So yeah, I've been that throughout life. Honestly, I don't know. I've been labeled so many things. I'm honestly surprised one thing, though. I mentioned this at the very beginning with the little intro. I've never been labeled like that vegan friend or anything like that, which surprises me because, like I said, I'm not going to turn this podcast into a vegan podcast. But if you know me personally, you know I talk about it a lot because if someone brings up food, I'm going to mention it. Someone brings up clothes and they mention the new leather jacket, I'm going to mention it. There's a lot of aspects where it's like I'm going to mention it. Yet somehow I've known someone for months, and I do that thing. I never hide that aspect of myself about me being vegan. And then after like 2-3 months, then they find out I'm vegan because I directly tell them. And that just shocks the hell out of me. That somehow I can be so actively talking about it, and just that's one thing that people just slip. They'll pick up on my running. They'll pick up on me playing D&D. They'll pick up on me learning German. They'll pick up on me like when I was younger. I used to be really edgy, so I know a lot about swords. And they pick up on all these little things, except for that. And I just find that funny. And yeah, I think that's going to be where I leave this podcast for today. I want to leave it pretty short. I want to leave this mostly unedited. Once it starts to pick up some steam and once I'm more comfortable with it, I might start adding in some music in the background or like gameplay in the background depending on what I'm feeling. If I do provide music, I will always credit the artist. For example, I haven't played any music in this video, but my friend Fluorescent Funeral, he gave me explicit permission to use his songs in the background. Like, if I want to use it to intro or outro in the middle, I can do that. So, I am planning on doing that. I want to give him more notoriety. He makes really good music. Like, really good. If you like techno instrumental, but not like dubstep hardcore stuff, he's your guy. And I know how much of a niche that sounds like. Mostly because it is a very specific niche. But he does it so damn well. And I know he's told me before that he's inspired by like Getter and I think Black Bear. I don't think Black Bear too much, but I don't listen to Getter. I don't like to listen to a lot of that type of stuff. He's like the only exception. But yeah, if you listen to Getter, check him out. Again, it's Fluorescent. I can't speak. Bright Colored Dead Party. I'm just gonna call him that for a second. Fuck. Okay, you know what? Alright, you know, it will be in the description if you're on YouTube. Link to his Spotify, because I can't pronounce his name. And until I can, I'm going to refer to him as Bright Colored Dead Party, because fuck it. I can't say Fluorescent Funeral. I did it! Alright, have a wonderful day. This is episode 1 of Ongoing Titles. And yeah. Till next time.